So time now is 7:40. Let's give you the space news. You probably heard yesterday we were telling you about the planned mission. Well, it's all complete. Earlier this morning, NASA learned that a space probe has successfully slipped into orbit around the largest planet in the solar system, Jupiter.
Yes, the Juno satellite left Earth some 5 years ago, fired its engine for 35 minutes, slowing it down enough to be captured by Jupiter's gravity.
So this was the moment the news came through. The delicate manoeuvre had actually worked.
All stations on Juno Accord. We have the tone for burn cutoff on Delta B. Roger, go move, Juno. Welcome to Jupiter.
We're joined now by Dr. Leigh Fletcher, a lecturer in planetary science, who I think would have wished to have been there. Also on the Juno project, working there, is Glenn Orton, a Juno team member at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, who's in Pasadena. It's lovely to speak to you both. Glenn, I don't know what you normally look like, but you look like you've had a great night. How are you feeling? What was it like?
Immensely relieved. And I was working in a room, kind of hosting, being the science host for a room with family and friends of Juno, which included, in fact, most of the investigators and principal investigators of certain instruments. And we were just rejoicing. It's been a long time, and there was no complete certainty we would succeed in this most important maneuver after launch. And it all worked, and in fact, worked perfectly. Precisely down to the very minute the burn began and the very ended. So we now have our work cut out for us.
Just explain for us, Glenn, because we saw the pictures of you and your colleagues celebrating a moment ago. There was a moment in time, wasn't there, when you weren't sure. You genuinely weren't sure whether the news would come back, it's in place, everything's okay, or what? There was a moment in time, wasn't there?
Kind of a moment. It wasn't very long. I mean, because we got the tone that the burn was about to end, which came on exactly at the right time. A little precursor for what was going to happen, and then it did. And then we just celebrated. People jumping up and down. I was sort of in tears, I'll admit that. And my goodness, for a bunch of dispassionate scientists, there were a lot of hugs going around everywhere.
Well, Glenn, Dr. Leigh Fletcher, who I know you know well, is with us here in the studio, and he did predict in advance. He said that you'd be in tears. He did predict that.
He knows me all too well.
So take us back some of the basics on this one. What does happen now? What's the goal?
So now that Juno is actually in orbit around this colossal world, what we're trying to do is understand the formation of Jupiter in the first place. So we're not shying away from the big questions here. We are trying to discover what the interior structure of this giant planet is like. And the reason we want to do that is to understand not just the formation of Jupiter, but the formation of giant planets both in our solar system and around other stars. It's the story of our solar system.
So what is Juno going to do now? It's in orbit and it's going to continue for some time?
Yeah, so we're in this polar orbit, which means we go high over the North Pole, then we whiz very close to the cloud tops and back out again. And we'll do that once every 50 days to start with, but then we'll get into a fortnightly orbit. And every time we do those orbits, we'll be looking down at the planet, we'll be measuring the environment around the planet, taking images, and also measuring the internal structure of Jupiter.
And Glenn, why can't we straight away see some fantastic images? Why the delay? We want to see some pictures straight away.
You should be able to see images released. We just released images taken of on the approach phase, so those should be coming up. If you don't see them right away, they should be coming up very, very quickly. And we wanted to make sure that right around the Jupiter orbit insertion, JOI, plus minus 4 days, there was absolutely nothing else going on to distract the engineers and to distract from the radio signals that were coming in from the spacecraft. We're now in the process for the next few days of downloading those to understand what was the radiation environment we went through in order to practice what it is we need to, the challenges that we're going to meet for the next 53 days and for the rest of the mission.
And just tell us a little bit about, we know that there's obviously, Leigh, some really extraordinary science on board. This is a massive achievement. Also, some small figurines have gone to Jupiter as well.
That's right. There are 3 small Lego figurines on the spacecraft that have been placed there to try and get the general public more interested. If If you're not interested in already, then this is to try and enthuse us even more. And it's Galileo, Juno, and Jupiter. And the mythology goes that Jupiter was quite a mischievous god and that he veiled himself in clouds, just like the giant planet Jupiter, to hide his mischief. But it was his wife, Juno, that discovered what he'd been up to. And that's exactly what this spacecraft is
And
trying
what you're
to do.
hoping to find out.
Exactly. We're going to part the cloudy veil and see the heart of this colossal giant planet.
And Glenn, can I just ask you finally, space exploration, of course, is what we're talking about. So now you've got Jupiter, the tick has been put on that box. Where next? Where can you go and investigate next?
Well, I think the only planets have been explored only a single time, and only by a very quick flyby by Voyager 2 were Uranus and Neptune. And those are kind of idiosyncratic. They're kind of not quite as light as the gas giants, Jupiter and Saturn. But Uranus and Neptune are our next challenges, I think. They're pretty challenging too because they're furthest away from the sun.
Glenn, lovely talking to you. Thank you for sharing your tears of joy with us this morning.
Go and have some sleep.
And the team meeting starts pretty early tomorrow morning, and we're on our way. Thanks very much.
Very good.
Good to speak to you, Leigh. Thank you very much indeed.
You're
as well.
very welcome.
And we'll get through it. We'll get hold of those pictures. I've just been able to find them actually, but we hopefully will be able to get them here on breakfast as well. So that would be great.